So in this lesson, we are going to build not something complex, but something that is really simple, something that is really easy to understand, and also something that will help us combine everything that we have learned. So we are going to build a to-do list up, and I'll try to implement everything that we have learned so far in this course. So without further ado, let us start with the first lesson, whereby we are going to create the project UI. All right. So what I'm going to do is that, let me open my terminal. I'm going to start everything from scratch. Let me just go to the drive C, and in my drive C here, let me clear everything here. I'm going to initiate a new Laravel project. All right. And to do that, I'll just say Composer. I'm using Composer, as you can remember from our first module. Composer create project, and you'll say Laravel /Laravel, and in this case I'm going to use Laravel 9. So the way you do this, you do like this, and you say 9.0, for example, and then the name of the project is going to be to do. Let us call this to do app, like that. Then you press enter. So this will create an empty, or will initiate a Laravel project. All right. So it is installing Laravel. Just a minute. Okay, nice. The Laravel application has been successfully installed. What I'm going to do is that inside the web.php file, I'm going to create my own route here. In this case, it will be home. All right. So I'm going to delete also this view inside the view, the welcome. I don't need this. So I'm going to delete this guy. And then since we have created a home view here, and then inside the view, I'm going now to create my new blade file, which is home.blade.php. all right, that is okay for now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use Bootstrap for this project. So I'm going to open Bootstrap documentation, and I'm going to use Bootstrap 4.6. You can use any version that you want, because the features that I'm going to use here, I believe they are all covered in all Bootstrap. So in this option, getting started, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to copy their starter template. Where is it? So let me just click here, getting started. All right. So let me just scroll down here, the starter template. I'm going to copy this guy. I'm going to go back to my project, and inside our home page here, our home blade template, I'm going to paste this guy inside here. All right. So, and then I'm going to do some bit of cleanup. I'm going to remove these comments. You actually don't need any of these comments. Let me just remove this, and then remove this, and then also remove this. So that is fine for now. And then if now we open our guy in the browser, we should have nothing fancy, but at least we have gotten started. So if I go to the browser now and just do a refresh here, and so as you can see, now we have our hello world. But now, for now, we don't need this hello world. This is just dummy. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a container and say div dot to create a class of container. All right. And then inside this container, we are going to have a class of row, right? And inside this row, we are going to have a class of 8 columns, and these are going to be LG, large columns. All right, so something like this. And then what I'm also going to do is that now inside this guy this is where I'm going to put an H1 and say maybe task list. So this is the page that is going to display all our tasks that we'll have in our app. And then I'm going to justify this content to be center. So say justify content center. Then let us do a refresh here back and see. So we have our content justified. So we also need to add a margin top so that at least it can be. So in our row, I'm going to say empty for margin top and put it 5. That should be fine. So let us do a refresh here. All right. So as you can see, our content has been centered, and that is what exactly I wanted. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to put a component here that will display the list of tasks. And for this, I'm going to use, let us say, a list group. It's just similar to a list and an UL element, but in a more, in a more formatted manner. So I'll use this guy. So I'm going to scroll down. As you can see, this is how it appears. So I'm going to use this guy with an active item, and I'm going to copy this guy here. So let me just copy this guy and go back to my code. And then I'm going to replace now the task list here, the H1 that we have here. That is fine. And then now for the active item, I'm going to say task lists. That is the first item in this list, which is active and has a background of blue. So that is fine for now. So let us go back to the browser and see our guy. So let us do a refresh here. So as you can see now, we have some we have a beautiful list here. And the thing that I'm going to do next is that for each of these items that will appear here, we need to add a button for view, for edit, and also for delete, so that when someone clicks the view button, can be able to view the elements of this task, and which will be basically the title and the description. And if you can click edit, it should also be able to delete to edit this task, and if you click delete, this task should also be deleted. I'm going to remove this other element so that I can just remain with one list element here. And inside this element, I'm going to also have a row here. So I'm going to say div.row to create a row, and then I'm going to have two divs. All right, and the first one, I can say maybe it should be of column LG and 8. All right, and then I'll duplicate this. The second one should be of column 4. All right, and then I'm going to move now my text inside the first div like that, and inside the second div now I'm going to have 3 buttons, and this button will be in form of an A anchor tag, so that I can be able to click and then it will direct me to some other place. So I'm going to say A, and the class will be of class btn, and then you can have also a class of btn-sm, that is a small button. And then for the first one, we can have a class of maybe btn-success. All right, so we can have something of that. And then I'm going also to duplicate this, and this will be the second one for maybe editing can be something of maybe info class btn info, and the third one for deleting can be something of maybe class warning. All right, and then you can put labels here and say something like view, and then something like edit, and then something like maybe delete. That is okay for now. So let us do a refresh here and see. So I'll do a refresh here. So as you can see now, we have the 3 buttons, the view, edit, and the delete. And maybe I can just move these elements here, this button, a little bit further. So what I can do is that I instead inside our call, inside our second div here, I can just create a div of type row. Then I can just move these elements inside here, and then what I can do is that I can just add class here of justify content end. Then I do a refresh here and see how this will be. All right, so we have something of this sort, and then you can see the guys are now cluttered, the elements are now cluttered. One thing that you can do, which I don't like doing, but let us just do, is that we can add maybe a margin left here. You can say margin right for this guy. Let us put maybe 3 like that, and then for these other guys will be the same. So it has a margin on the right so that we can have spacing on this element. So if I do a refresh here, so as you can see, this will do the trick, but let us reduce this margin. It looks a bit larger, so let me just put here to be 2, this to be 2. So this looks much better. And then what we are going to do is that we need a page now for viewing and for editing. For delete, we don't need any page for that. So let us go back to our code here. And for view, I'm going to create a new 2 new views. So let us just copy this and paste and call this file something like edit. All right. And then also copy and paste and call this file something like show. All right, so that is fine. And then for edit and for the edit template here, or for the edit blade template, I'm going to remove this guy inside our call here, this call large 8. I'm going to remove this UL list element here. I don't need this guy. And then for the edit, of course, we need a form whereby you can be able to submit the elements. So I'm going to bootstrap again, and I'm going to search for form. So yeah, the forms, and I'm going to copy this first guy here. I think this can work fine. I'm going to copy this guy. Then I'll paste this guy inside our column here, and then let us refresh this and see how it will appear. Actually, what we need to do is that we first need to add the edit route here. So I'm going to call this route, let us say edit dash task, and of course it's going to go to edit. And then if I go back to the browser here and I go slash edit dash task like that, as you can see now we have our guy here. So this doesn't look really pretty. So what I'm going to do is that when you go back to our home guy here, what I can do is that I can use this template here. Let me just copy this template here and go back to our edit guy and paste this guy here, and then just leave this first active guy here, but for these other guys I can simply delete. Then I can now move my form. Where's my forms? From here until here, I can now move it inside this guy. And then this title I can say maybe edit task, something of that sort. And then of course we need to, this is task, of course we need to change this label. This should be task title, and this should be of course task title. And then this label should match the ID. And then of course this should be of type text. And then we need a name that will be submitting data to Laravel. And then this name will be title, nothing complex here. And then we also need to remove this. We don't need this. And we also don't need label, this small guy here. Then you can just duplicate this and paste here and remove this third guy here. Right? And then for this guy can be task description. So this should be the same as our ID here, and then the name should be description, and this should be task description. All right, so let us go back to our browser and do a refresh again. So as you can see now we have our guy here, but one thing we can also do is that let us just go back here, and what we can actually do let us put this form inside a list element. So I'll do like this. I'll just remove this guy here, do like this, then remove this item active, and then move our form inside this list here. You can just play around just to come up with a better design than mine. So now this is what we currently have, which looks much better than the first design. So you can be able to enter your task title and your task description and then submit. So that is okay. The next thing we need is a page to view a single task. So inside the show here, I'm going to delete our second data here in the list group, and I'm going to use what we call an accordion. So let me just search here so that you can see how it looks. So an accordion, this is how it looks. It has this collapsible functionality whereby if you click this, it opens for more content, and that is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to copy our guy here. I'm going inside the show guy here. So the idea is that when someone clicks a single task to view a single task, it will bring him here, and here he can be able to click the single task and view maybe the description, something of that sort. So I'm going to paste this guy here, and then I'm going to delete these other two guys. We don't need these two guys, so I'm going to delete this first guy and then this also, so that we can just remain with one element here. And this second guy, let's see, it goes up to here. All right, and I'm going to change this to be something simple for now, maybe task title, and then this should be something like maybe task descriptions. All right, and then to format this code, you just press Ctrl A to highlight everything, then Ctrl Alt and then L. All right, it will format the code as you can see. So, and I'm going to add this route, of course, here. So I'm going to do this Ctrl D, and this should be show task. All right, show task, and this will go to the show blade file. So if we go back to our browser here, and then I'll just go now to show task, press enter. As you can now see, we have our accordion here, and if I click this, you can see it closes and opens. So that is exactly what I wanted. So the last thing that we now need to do is that if we go to our home page here, we need to be able to click this view, and then it will take you to the show page, and click this edit, and then it will take you to the edit page. So if I go to the web, to the web.php where my routes are, what I like doing is that I like giving these route names. So this is how you do. You, at the end of this route, you just say name, and then you give it a specific name. For this case, I just say, let us just say home task dash home, and then this second guy, we can just say something like I don't know, something like task dash edit. And then for this last guy, we can say something like maybe task dash show. All right, and then now if I go to my home guy here, is that anytime someone click this guy, I want him to take to this route. This is how you write the route, and then you apply the route name that you wrote here. And the reason why I like using names is that, for example, if someone here on the web comes and change this route here, these route names to something like home or wherever, still in your blade template, you won't need to change. Why? Because you're using this name, and this name will apply to anything that is in this route. All right, so short task, and then for edit we are going to have route, and this is going to be edit slash task. All right, so if I go back to my browser here, and just go to the home page here. Okay, I'm getting this error. This is it cannot find show and edit task. That is because this should be task edit, sorry. So I go back, this should be not show task but task dash show, and this should not be like this. This should be task dash edit rather. So let us do a refresh again and see. So we have our guy now. So if I click view, it should take me to the route where I can view a single task. So as you can see, it brings me here, and if I go back and then I click edit, it should take me to where I can be able to edit the task. As you can see, it brings me to this page. I believe now everything looks cool. And for this delete, we don't need any new page for deleting. We can just delete this task from now. So now in our next lesson, we are going to see how now we can be able to package this together into a controller and connect to the database, and now be able to do some really cool stuff. Hello guys, welcome to lesson 2 of our module 11, where we're going to look on how to create the project models, controllers of our migration. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how to do this. So in our code, of course, we just have the routes here, and also we have, of course, let me just switch here, and of course we have the project UI here. So I'm going to start with the controller. So let me just switch to my terminal here and just clear everything here. So I'm going to say PHP artisan, this is going to be a controller, calling this controller task controller. It is always a good practice to name your controller in singular form. That is what is recommended. Task controller. Okay, this should be artisan. Silly mistake. All right. So we have our controller created successfully. Then I'm going to create a model that is known as task. All right, task. So make model task like that. And lastly, I'm going to create a migration, and migration should be create underscore tasks table, something of that sort, and just run this. So we have our migration, we have our controller, and we have our model. So let us dive in and see. In our controller, we have we do not have any method. So I'm going to our web.php, and now what we are going to do is that we are going to move this code to our controller. So the first guy, I'm going to call this guy. I'm going inside our controller here. I'm going to create a method by the name, let's call this method index. All right, so it's going to return the view home, and then in our web.php now we can just remove this guy here. We can have an arrow here and say task controller like that one, and we are going to call say class. We are going to call a method by the name index. All right, so let me just remove this and import this class. All right, so that is okay. So again, we need a method by the name edit to show our edit form. So control D, do this, and then I'm going to put here to say edit, and then this is going to be view edit like that. Then if I come back here, just copy this guy. Then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to replace this guy here, and this is going to be edit, and that will go, yeah, that is fine. And then we also need a method for show. So if we go to our task controller, control D, then this will be show. This will go to show like that, and then I'll replace our guy here, and this will go to show. All right, so that is fine. Edit, index and show. So if I go back to task controller, we have this same method and nothing should now break. I think everything is okay. So let us try again to do a refresh and see here. So let us just do a refresh. So everything seems okay. So the next thing I can do is that let us click view and see where it will take us. So that is okay. If I click edit, that is okay. So everything is okay so far. The next thing I want us to do is that I want to refactor these views here, and I want to place them in a folder. It's always a good practice to do that. So what I'm going to do is that if I go to our guy, where is our guy? Our resource guy here. Inside our views here, let me just create a new folder and call this folder tasks. All right, and then I'll just move my method inside this guy here like this. All right, and then once I've moved my my views inside the task, I'm going to adjust, of course, the task controller to point now to tasks dot, and instead of home, I'm going to call this index. I think it makes sense to be like that. So I'm going to call this method, to refactor this method to be index. So like this. So do refactor that one. And then the next one, I'm going to call this tasks dot edit. That is okay. And then this is going to be tasks dot show. So this now goes to the right view. So when I go back here, instead of naming these routes like this, I'm going to refactor them and name them as tasks. So this will be the folder that holds the views and then the method, all right, dot index. So that is one of the best way to rename or to name your routes. And this will be, of course, be tasks dot edit, and this will be tasks dot show tasks. All right, and then now if I go inside our guy here, I need to go and change this. Now this should be tasks dot show, and this should be tasks dot edit, and that should suffice. So let me just do a refresh again here, do a refresh here, and then now let me click view. All right, view. Let us go to edit / task. All right, let us go to our web controller. Everything looks okay. So far everything is okay. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is that I can be able to combine all these routes into one route. So if, for example, I create a route here, let me just create a route here and show you what will happen. So I say route, and I call this route resource. All right, and then I give it I give it a route name or a slash like that, and then I say this should point to task controller class. All right, then I do something like that, and then if I go to my terminal now and I list the routes here, I say PHP artisan route list. I do this. As you can see now, there is some kind of additional routes that have been created behind the scene. And so basically when I did the route resource thing, it created these routes behind the scene. So we can just use the route resource instead of using all these routes that we have, because this route resource comes by default with all these methods. Yeah, and I'll show you later how you can be able just to create a controller at once with all these methods. But for now, we have the index. As you can see here, we have the index, we have the show, and the edit method. We have these three methods. So what I can do is that now I can get rid of these guys here. And by the way, if you look at this these routes here, they also have their names nearly similar to what we have been doing. As you can see, is that we have task.index, that is what we have named, task.shows, and task.edit. So we can just use this route resource instead of using this route that we have here. And since we have already, these names are already included in this resource, so we can simply just delete this. If I go, let me just confirm something here. So we have task.show. Okay, task.show here expect a task. So what I can do is that let us modify our controller a little bit. So task.show expect us to pass a task like this. And then if we go back here, is that task.edit also expect us to pass a task here. So if I go to task.edit, I can do also something like this. And then task.index is okay. So now let us do a refresh and see. So I'll just go to the browser here again and do a refresh. Okay, the reason why you're seeing the error is because we do not now have this route here, which is by default. So what we can do is that we can add maybe just one route here and say maybe this should just be a get, and when someone has not added any route, it should go to route. This should be like this. Then it should go to the index of this guy. So they should solve the problem. So when someone has not added something, by default it should go to task controller and the index method. So let us refresh again here and see. So now I get another error, and here the error is it tells me missing required parameter for routes. So the reason is because these guys here, this task.show and task.edit, since you are calling specific routes, they expect parameters. So for now, what we can do is that if I go back to index here, I can simply just remove this for now, just to get the code working, and then we'll get into the logic. So if I go back to the browser and do a refresh, so this should now work. Since we do not pass any parameters, you can see now everything is okay. So, and actually one last thing that we can be able to do is that let us add also our database here. So if I go to .env here, where is our database connection? Is here MySQL. My database will be todo_app, and then like that. The username is raw, the password is none. So let us go to our database and create this database. So we have our database here. I'll go to SQL part and I'll just say create database todo_app, right? Then run this. All right, so our database has been created and we have our database added here. So that is it. So let me recap and then we can be able to start the logic. So I created the controller, all right, and this controller I added three methods: index, edit, and show. And then I created the model. So currently the model has nothing, and then I also created the migration. Our migration is here, all right, and also this migration currently has nothing. And lastly, I went to the web.route here, web.php, and I added these two guys. So this is the default route, and this resource, as we have seen, it will automatically create routes with the prefix of tasks, and this task will point to all these methods that we have here. It will create a route that points to the index method, the store methods, the create methods, and then we have the show method, we have the update, then we have the destroy, then the edit. But we already had the edit, the show, and the index. That is why I deleted the route that I had and I just left this like this. So if I want to go to a specific route, for example, task.create, I can just be able to create these routes without necessarily writing them on this web.php. And that is it, guys. So now we have our controller, our model, and our migration ready, and also the database are connected. So in the next lesson, we are going to now practically work on how to post data, to edit, to delete, and also to display messages depending on the status of the data. All right. Hello guys, welcome back to lesson 3, where we are basically going to look at the CRUD functionality, and that is create, read, update, and delete functionality. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how we can be able to do this. I'll switch to my code, and then so the first thing that we need to do, of course, is to update our migration. And in our migration, I'm just going to add two fields. Number one, I'm going to add a field for title, the title of the task, and also I'm going to add a field for description. All right, description. So we have our two guys here. So those fields are okay for now. And then of course I'm going to run our migration here. So let me just do like this and say PHP artisan migrate to run our migration. So the table are migrated, so that is okay. So the next thing that we are going to do is that I'm going inside the task model, and I'm going to add a protected field here, or a guarded field rather, so that I just say that the only data that will not go into the database will be the ID. All right, so I just say something like that, and that will be okay. So now I can be able to perform eloquent using every other data that the user will post. And then now if we go to our view, what we need now to have is that we created the edit, the index, and the show, but we did forget to create the create view, whereby the user can be able to create data, or can be able to create a task. So I'm going to add one more file here. So let us just copy this here, copy and paste, and just say this should be create something of that sort. And then inside the create, of course, we'll only change this to be create task, and then it has the task title and task description. And then if we go to the browser, one thing that we need to do now is to add a button on top here for creating the task. So if I go back to index, I'll just go on top of our task list here, and I'm going to add a button here. All right, or let us just add an href link here, and this will be of class btn medium, and will be btn success for now. And that I'll just say here create task. And if you go back to our route list, you actually see that we'll have a create method. So if I say PHP artisan and I say route and I'm going to list, we actually need to see, as you can see, we have task create, and this will go to the create method. So what we can actually do is that we can actually point this route there and say href, and say we're going to call a route, and this route, as we can see, is tasks.create. all right, so if I go to the terminal here, you can see we have this route here with the method or with the name task.create. So it goes to the create method. So I need to create that method inside my task controller. So index, and I'm going to just do like this, and then I'm going to call this method create, and this is going to return create. All right. So now if I go to the browser, let us do a refresh here and see how this will appear. So we have the create task. Let us add some button, some margin bottom here. So where is it? It's supposed to be in the index. So I'm going to say margin bottom maybe 3. Let's go back and do a refresh here. So that looks fine. If I click here, it takes me to create task, and create task we have this. So that is fine for now. So the next thing that we are now going to look is if I go into the controller, we need now to store the data that will be coming from the create functionality. And if I look at my route here, the data will be stored on this where we have this store guy here. As you can see, this task.store, and if you check here, it is a post method. All right, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create another method here, and this method of course should be store, and of course should get data from the request. All right, like this. So for now we are not going to do anything. We are just going to dd to see if data will be able to get here. We are going to dd or to get everything that comes from the request using the request all. So that is fine for now. So I'll go to the create functionality, create.blade here, and then in this form I'm going to add a method, and this method is going to be of course post. And then I need also to add an action, of course, and this action will go to the route guy, and our route, of course, this time will be tasks dot store. All right, and then we also need to add a CSRF token to this, so that this CSRF, so that this form ought to be valid. Otherwise it won't be valid when you submit data. And then of course we have the name, we have the description, and then we have the submit button. That is okay. So let us try and see. Let me just do a refresh here, then let me fill this data again and submit. Yeah, as you can see now, the data is being dd'd, or is being dumped here, and that is because of course in the task controller we have these guys here. So if you go to the database, since we created these two fields in our database, now we ought to have these two fields. So if I go into the database and just do a refresh here, we need to have this table task with these two fields. So let me just scroll where we have to do up here, and then we have our fields, we have these tasks here, and inside this table we have these two fields, title and description. All right, so let us store this data. We can simply do something like this. So actually, again, we need to import the model here. So we have the model. Let me just import this guy here. This is import class, this is the model. So I'll just get the model by saying task. This will get the model, and then I need to create. All right, to create like this, and here I'll just pass an array. For now we are not doing any validation, you do that later. And inside here I want the guy by the name ID, or rather a guy by the name title, to be the guy that comes from the request, the title guy that comes from the request. And I'll use input for this and say I want this to be title. So this guy that comes on the request, where is it? This guy here. And then we also need description, of course. So just do something like this. This will be comma, just say description like this, and then for now just dd here and say data stored, something of that sort. So let us go back here and do a refresh. So let us do a refresh here again. So now let us fill our form again and submit this data. So you're told that description doesn't have a default value, and that is because this is description. Let us copy this. Okay, I forgot to label this to be description. So let us go back and do a refresh here. Alright, data stored. And if I go to the DB now, if I go to the database and I do a refresh here, we ought to see our data stored here. So we have our data stored here and we are done with that. So for now, let us just redirect back. So maybe someone wants to continue storing data. Just say return redirect. Okay, sorry. Redirect, and then we'll say redirect back, like that. So that is okay for now. And then what we need to do is that when someone loads localhost by default like this, we need to display the list of all tasks in our guy here. All right. So in the index method now, we are going to get our task like this, and we are going to get all the tasks that will be in the database in that case, and we can just assign this to something like task like that, and just say that our task, when someone load this guy, we are going to pass this guy to the compact method. All right, and the compact method will tie our task to this view here. So now when we go inside the index guy here, the index view, what we can actually do, instead now of displaying dummy data as we are doing here in our list, we can now say that for each of our tasks that will be coming from the database, all right, we want to display a task for each of these guys. So we can end for each like that, and then now I can move our guy inside the for each. All right, and now the title will be coming from the task and not just a dummy title. So we can do something like this, title, and then for each of this guy, of course, we want to have the view, the edit, and the delete button. That is okay for now. All right, so I think that is okay. So let me save this. So let us do a refresh and see what it will give us if we load localhost now. So as you can see now, it gives us our task that we created. And now if I go to create task and I just populate this with maybe working out, and I just say description will be full body workout, and then I submit this guy, it will redirect me back here. And if I go to task or home, which are just the same thing, you can see that now we have our second task. So the next thing that we can actually do is that when someone clicks this view here, this view button, it needs to take him to where he can be able to view a single task. All right, view the description and the title. So now our guy here, our view guy here, ought to go to this. Let me just open our route list here. It needs to go to the show guy here. All right, and as you can see, the show guy is a get route, and you need to pass task. So we need to get the ID of this task that is being clicked and be able to get its data. So what I can do is that I can just pass again a route here like this, and then in this route I can just go to tasks all right, dot show. That is the name of that route, and then I need to pass some data here, and this data of course needs to come from this task that has been selected. So I can just do like this, and it ought to be the ID. All right, as simple as that. So I'll pass a parameter here that will go into this task.show, and then now if I do this, I can now get this data inside our task controller show method here. So if I go to a show method, for now what we can actually do is that we can just say task, let us just dd and see what will happen. Let us just say dd task like that. Then let me just do a refresh here again. So now if I click view, as you can see now it takes us to the specific task that we have here. And then now using this data now, this task, since we have gotten this, I can pass that data now to our guy here, our compact guy, and I can just say task. All right, this should be something like that. Yeah. So let us go now to our show guy, and now instead of passing some demi title here, I can simply say that there's some task that is coming from the controller, and I can be able to get this title here now by saying something like this title, and then I can say there is also some description that is coming from the controller. All right, and I need to get this description. So I just say task description, and now that will be okay. So if I go back here, let us go back to our home, let us do a refresh here, and let us now try to click something like this view here. So as you can see, it goes with one, and this is the title, and this is the description that we have here. So if I go back, if I click this working out, it takes me and it tells me that the title is working out. If I click the description is full body workout, and we are done with that. So the next thing I want us to work on is the delete, and then we'll finish with the edit, since the edit is a little bit hard as compared to these other ones. So for the delete, when I look at the routes here, you'll actually see that we have this destroy guy here. So that expects us to pass a task, or the idea of that task for that matter. So in our case here, if I go to our index guy here and I go to the delete button here, I'll go to the route known as just go to this route, and this route will be tasks dot destroy like that, and they expect me to pass a data, and this data of course will be none other than the task ID. All right, nothing hard, nothing complex, very simple. Now I need to go inside the task controller, and I need to create a destroy method that will be able to delete that task that is being deleted. So for now, this is destroy like that, and it expects us. So what I'm doing here, as you can remember, is the model binding. When I pass an ID, it will automatically pick the model with that ID. And so what I can simply do here is that I can just say something like task, and I just call the delete method on that task. All right, and then I can redirect. Let me return redirect. Can redirect back here. For now, that is okay. So if I go back to the browser here, let me just do a refresh. So after doing a refresh, let me try to delete this as dummy data that I have here. As you can see, okay, it's taking me to show it should be delete. All right. I think I know the issue. The issue is that when deleting, we need to submit a form and not just some some URL. Yeah, that was the mistake. So I need to create a form here like this, and then I need to pass this guy inside here. All right. So, and then what I can do now is that this route will go to the action of the form. So I'm going to cut this guy here, and I'm going to paste this guy on the form action like this, and I'm going to change this to be a button instead of an anchor tag, and then I'm going to say this is going to be of type submit. All right, so this should be button like this, and then for this form we need to say that the method should be post. All right, post, and then lastly we need to say that the down here we need to put the CSRF token, and we also need to say the method specifically here will be none other than the delete method. All right, so this should work now. So if I go back to our guy here, let me just do a refresh and try again to delete. So let us try again to delete this guy. Yeah, as you can see now, this has worked. So if I create a new task, just try to create a new task. Maybe let us say this task is let us say reading, and this will be reading history and literature, something of that sort, and then I submit this task. All right, so if I go back here, we have the reading guy here, and then let us say, for example, if I delete this guy, yeah, it is gone. So the last thing that we need to do is that when someone clicks the edit button, it should take him to the edit page, and on the edit page it should have it should pre-populate the edit data there so that it can be able to edit data for that specific task. All right, so on the edit, if I go to the routes here, is that you can see when we click the edit functionality, it will go to this route. So we have this route, and the task, the route is known as task edit. So that is what I'm going to pass here. So if we go to our edit guy here, it expects us to pass a route like this, and this route will be none other than tasks.edit like this. And then it also expects us, of course, to pass a parameter, and this parameter, of course, is none other than the task ID for that specific task. And then for that now is okay. That is okay for now. If we go here, let us just try to dd our guy here and say task, something like that, like this. And then let us try now to click, let us do a refresh and try to click the edit button and see what it will do. So if I click the edit button, as you can see, it also takes me to this guy with the demi data here that we have. So this data need to go to the edit page and populate the edit form. So I'm going to add a compact here and say that this will be the data that has come from our guy here, from our route or from our request. And then now inside the edit blade, for the title, I don't need to pass some demi data that I have here. This input here, I can say that now the value which is now passed from the controller will come, will populate this guy, and I can just say something like this is task, and I'll get the title. All right, and then I can also change this ID to be edited. I think that makes sense. Edited task title, and then let me just copy this. Lazy, and come to the description and paste this guy here, and then I'll say that this will be description like this, and then lastly this should be edited task description. All right, so let us try and click the edit button and see what it will give us. Let me go back, let me do a refresh here very fast, and let me click the edit button. So as you can see, it takes us to this route here, and we have the task title that is now filled in and the task description. If I go back and if I do a refresh here again, and then I create a new task, for example, and let us say singing, and maybe I like hymns, and just say singing hymns, something of that sort, and then I submit this guy, and then I go back. Let me just go back this way. We have singing, and if I click edit, we now have singing and singing hymns, and that is what exactly we wanted. So the next thing that we now need to do is that when someone submits the edited data, it should go and edit the specific task that has been submitted in this case. So if I go back to my route list here, as you can see, we have we have this update method, and update method expect us to pass some data here, and it expects us to pass on the parameter the ID for that specific task, but also it takes in the request. You can be able to pass the request, and it is a put method or a patch method, as you can see here. So now on the edit form here, this need to have an action here, so that we need to submit the data, and then this data of course is going to go to route, and this will be task dot update to update the data, and then we need to have the method, of course. Sorry, this should be like that, and this should be method. The method is of course post, and then we now need to specify our CSRF guy, and also we need to specify the method that we'll be using. In this case, we'll use put. All right, that is it. And then in our guy here now, in our task controller, we need to have the update method that will get the data from the request. So we have our guy like this, and then so I can just do like this, and this need to be update, and this update method of course will get the task from the URL, and also of course we need the request, so something of that sort, so like this. So for now I'm just going to delete the request first to see if it is getting our data from the request. So request, and I'm getting to get all from that guy. And then lastly, I'll also delete this task to see if you are getting the right or the correct task to edit. So I'll go back here. So let me click edit for singing here. Okay, it tells me that okay, all right, I'm missing the parameter for this update guy. So I need to go back to our guy edit here, and I need to pass a parameter here, the second guy, and this guy will be of course task, and I'll get the ID, something of that sort. Go back, I'll do a refresh here. All right, and then if I click the submit button, we ought to see the data or the request, in this case singing hymns. And actually if I go back, let me just do a refresh here, and I say maybe I've chose to change this to something like dancing. I want to, and let us say maybe dancing Lingala, something stupid like that, and then click that. As you can see, now we have dancing Lingala, but we also need to check the data that we are getting in this case, which is the task. So we need also to check if the task is the correct one that we are getting. So I'll just do something of that sort, and then just go back here, and then I'll just do a refresh here. So we want to edit this guy number 4. So if I click this guy, as you can see, we have now number 4 here. So we are getting the correct ID and we are getting the correct data. So to edit this data would be very simple. So I'll just say task. So this will refer to the specific task that is being intended to be updated, and I just call the update method, and then I just pass the data inside here and say I want my title to be anything that will come from the request. All right, so request, and then I'll call the input guy, and then I'll call the title guy in our case, and then I also need to pass the description. All right, description, and this description of course should be this guy, and for now we can just redirect back. All right, so let us do a refresh here again and see. Let us go back here, do a refresh here. Now if I go to the DB, let me just do a refresh here so that you can see how this will work out. So in the DB now we have these singing hymns. So when I edit this guy, I expect it to be updated. So for example, if I say dancing, and I say here something like dancing Lingala, and I submit this guy. Yeah, when I submit this guy here, of course nothing happens because it is redirecting me back. But if I go to the database, I do a refresh, as you can see we have dancing Lingala. And if I try again to change this to maybe shouting, let us try this, shouting like a mad man, then I submit this. This has been submitted. Then if I go to the database, I do a refresh here. We have our guy shouting like a madman. And that is it. We have been able to perform all the functionalities that we need so far. And that is, we are able to list the elements that we have here. When I click view, I'm able to see the full data of this guy. When I go back, I can be able to delete this guy. And when I go back again, I can be able to edit the data of this guy. So we have been able to fully perform all the CRUD functionalities that you need. And for now, I think we are good. We are okay for the next task. Hello guys, welcome to lesson 4. In this lesson, we are going to look at validation and notification. If there is any error, if there is any success, we need to notify the user that either the input or the submission that he has made is either valid or invalid. So we need to do that. So let us go back to our code. So now if we go back to our code, is that anytime we are submitting this data either in the store or in the update method, we need to validate this data because you're storing this data into the database. And for now, just use simple validation. Maybe later we can use more complex validation. You just get the request and then you call the validate method. This validate method will take an array, and inside this array, the way you validate this task or the way you validate this data that is coming from the user, you just say in this case we want the title, and we just say that we want the title to be required. What it means is that of course the title cannot be null. So there are many things that you can be able to do here, like for example you can be able to say I want the marks of this title to be something like 255. I want this title to be something like unique, you know, all those things you can be able to do. For now, just put required, and then I'll also need to validate the description. So let me just copy this description here, and here we need to put a comma, and that is it. By doing this, I will have already validated the data. And so let me just copy this, and again I'll come to the update method, and I'll also pause the validate guy here. So the next thing we need to do is that when this data is validated, it throws an error, and we need a way to capture this error and display to the user. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going inside the crate, or rather let us start with the index. And what I'm going to do is that on top here, just before this button here, I'm going to check if there is any error in our guys. I'll use if, and I'll end if, of course. All right. And here in the if, I'll check if error. All right. If there is any error, and this is how you check, you say any. If there is any error, then I want you to do something, and in this case, I'll just create a div, and this div will have a class of alert, and this alert will be of alert, I believe alert danger. All right, and inside here we can have again an UL, and then UL can be of a class, let us say class list group again, like this. And inside here, of course, we can have the list like this, and then we can have this should be class list group item. All right, so just paste this here like that. And so once we get that there is any error when we submit data, we want to loop through this error and display it in a list format. So inside here, I'm going to use a for each, and then I'll end for each like this. Then I'll copy our guy here, I'll paste him here. Let me just do this, and then like this. And then for each, you'll get all the errors. So say, so this should be actually errors, not error. Then errors all. So this will get all the errors as error like that, and then I'll display that error inside here. So need to do this and say our error will be displayed here. So like that. So let me just format this so that it looks much better. And by doing this, we'll have already validated and displayed the error. But now this is just in the index page only. So let me just copy this. Actually, let me just add a margin bottom here so that we can add some spacing here. Margin bottom, we can give this to be 3. Then I'll just copy this guy. I'll go inside the edit. I'll go inside this guy. I'll paste him here. I'll go inside the create. Here, I'm gonna paste this guy here. And I'll go inside the show. Then what can I do is that we can actually paste this guy here. Like that. So let's go back and do a refresh and see to our guy. So here I'll do a refresh. So now I'll try to create something here and see if it will throw an error. So we go to the create, and then here I'll just try to submit this data without anything. So submit this data. As you can actually see that it throws an error here. The title field is required and the description field is required. All right. So now when I fill this data, I'm using this fillable extension to fill demi data, and then just click submit. So our data has been submitted, and if I go back now to our guy here, index, is that I need now to see the data. So if we go there, so now we have our data here, our guy here. So let us try again for edit to see if it will throw the error if I try to submit data without any actual data. So let me just delete this and also delete this and try to submit data here. As you can see, this also throws the error, right? So that is it. We have been able to validate and we've been able to show the validation here. But also now we also need to show the success message when someone creates, updates, or even deletes data here. To do that is also very simple. I'll go inside the task controller, and where we are storing data here, once everything has been stored successfully, we can use the session guy. And this session guy, we can call a guy by the name, I believe it's flash, like this. And then you can pass a message here. And then this message can be maybe task created successfully. Something of that sort. Successfully, like this. So I'm going to copy this again, and I'm going to go to the update method. So when someone updates data, I need also to notify them that the data has been created successfully. And then when also someone deletes data, I need also to notify them that the data has been deleted successfully. All right, so I'll just do this, and then for update, this will be updated successfully. And then now if I go to our guys here at the view, so let us just go to the view here. I'll add or rather I'll need to check first that the session has some kind of this data. For example, just say, then I can say session has, if it has a guy by the name message, then we can do something. All right, like that. So if it has message, I'm going just to copy this alert here, and in this case, if it has any message, we won't display an alert danger, but instead we'll say alert success. I think there's something like that. And then in our case here, instead of looping through the errors, we'll only display the message that comes from the session. So this should be, I believe it is, let us see, session, something like this, get, and then here should be message. So let's see this. Okay, and this should be, let's try to call session like this and try to get this guy like this. All right, okay, this seems to be okay. So we check if it has a message, and then we display this message here, and it will be of type success. All right, I've placed this guy on the index. Okay, need to place this guy also on the edit, just below the guy for errors. So paste this guy here on create. I also need to paste this guy here on show. I'll also need to paste this guy just below here. So we have all our pages, they have this data. So let us try to create a new guy here. So I'll just go to, so let us try to create a new task here. Create task. Then let us fill the descriptions here. Then submit. So as you can see, when I submit this data, I get a message task created successfully. So that is what we exactly wanted. So now we have been able to handle the validation and the and we have been able to handle the notification for the errors and also for the success message. Hello guys, welcome to lesson 5 of our module 11, and this is our last lesson. As we have seen, we have already built the app and it is working correctly, and the final action that you always ought to do when you are developing is to review and refactor your code using best practices, if you can. And that is what exactly I would like to do in this project. And then perhaps we see how we can make our app better. We can make it much, the code much clearer and just easy to understand. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how we can apply some of the best practices to improve our app. The first thing that we like to do is that when I go into the view task, the task folder here in the views, if you can remember, is that we had learned how to use the blade includes and the blade layouts. So I can be able to apply that here. So what I'm going to do is that here I'm create a new folder known as layouts. All right. So I'm going to say layouts like this, and inside here I'm going to create a new file known as body. So this will define the body template. So I'm saying body.blade.php like that. And then I'll go to this index. I'll start with the index. I'll copy everything that is in the index, and then I'll go to the body, and then I'll paste everything inside here. All right. Then I'll scroll up, and as you can notice is that our code or our main code lies in this guy here, either in this container or in this column 8, but I'll use the container in this case. So if you flip this container, we have this code that is repeated all through the other file, this other part and this other the down part here. So what we can do is that this part that is repeated, we can replace this part with at yield. All right, and then we can just say that this will be our content like that. And then if I go now to the index guy here, what I can do is that I can just remove this part which is repeated and just say that in our case here, I'm going to extend. I'm going to use add extends, and in this case I want to extend the view layouts, the view that is inside the task, right? That is tasks dot layout dot body like that, and I want the section part or the content part, this is how you say the content part, to be replaced by the content that I'll put here. All right, so like this. And the section which has been labeled content, that is this section here which I've labeled content, to be replaced by anything that I'll pass there, and in our case will be everything in the container. So I'll just move it inside the section here, and then I'll delete everything else like this. So if we open up, as you can see, now we have this. So I'll do the same thing also for this other guy. So I'll go to the show, and then I'll just do this. I'll create a section here very fast. I'll call this, of course, content, and then I'll end our section here like this. And then of course I'll move our guy here inside here, and I'll delete the other parts like that. And then also I'll delete this header like that. So our code looks much cleaner and much neater. And then here I need, of course, to do extends, and what I'm extending is tasks dot layout dot body like that. So this is fine. Let me just do this, and then index show edit. I can just do this extends status tasks dot layout dot body, and then I can just say add section content. Then I can just move down and remove everything here and say at end section. All right, and then I'll also come to create. I think that is the last one. Then I'll do at extends, just say tasks dot layout dot body section content guy like that. So then we just end our section here, and section. All right, so that is cool. And then I believe we are all good. So that is all right, that is all right, that is all right. So if I go to the browser and just refresh, nothing should break, and everything should still work fine. So as you can see, everything is still fine. Then here in the body, what I can do is that this top guy here, I can actually create a new folder here and call this folder partials. All right, like this. And then I can just cut this top part here and go to partial and create a new file here. Call this file header .blade.php. I'll paste everything inside here, and inside the body, what I'm going to do, I'll use an include. I'll just say include, and then I'll say since these are in the same, I can start from layout, I think. Let's just do this task dot layouts dot partials, and it goes to header like this. Then I can also cut this lower guy, go to partials, create a new file. I'll name this to be footer.blade.php. I'll paste everything there. I'll go back to our guy. Let me actually copy this guy, come here, and this will be footer. All right, so if I go back, I do a refresh, everything should be okay. Everything is okay. And then the other thing that I like to employ here is that if I go to the controllers, our controller guy, we have been using this request this way, and in this case I would like to apply the store request, or the form request rather, validation, which is a much advanced feature. So let me just show you in this lesson how to apply that. So if I go to our terminal here, so let me clear everything here, and then I'll just say PHP artisan, and in this case I'll make a request, and the request of this name will be maybe store task request, like that. So that will be the one to handle the store functionality. And then I'll also create another one which I'll call it update, for updating the task request. And then I'll do that. So now if I go inside our guy app, we have this folder here, request with two guys, and it has this authorize and rules. So for now I don't need to explain much. Just change this to be true, authorize, and then for rules, go inside your controller, task controller, and then for the store, I'm going to copy this array here, this data inside our validate method. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go inside our store guys, and I'm going to paste it inside here. Then going back here, I'm going to delete this guy, and instead of using store request here, I'm going to use store task request, like that. I believe it is imported on top. That is okay. For the updated guy, I'm gonna copy this guy like this. Actually, let me cut. Go to task, set this to true, then paste the rule here. That is okay. Go back, and then now you can remove this. And then now, instead of doing this, you see, instead of doing this, so I need to update task request like this, and instead of doing this, now what I can actually do is that this request will return the validated request. All right, and it returns this array title and description. So I can simply reduce this code by doing this, delete this until here, and I can simply say request, then I can get a value by the name validated. So this is the validated data from the request, then that will be okay. So I can do the same for store here. So I can actually just remove this and say request, then say validated, like that, and that will return the value that has been validated. And so what else can we do here? So that is okay for now. So let me refresh this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create task here, and here I'm going to try to submit again to see if the request does work, or the validation still does work. So I'm going to submit this. As you can see, the validation still works. If I submit this data, let us try now submit. As you can see, the task created successfully, the data submitted, and if I go back to our guy here, we can see that the data has been added. So one thing that we can actually do is that if I click create task, you see that we can be able to add task, but when we want to go back, we need to use this button. So let us just add a button here, and also on the edit guy, the button that will be taking us back here, all right, just to make it much user friendly and easy to navigate. So I'll just go inside our view. Where is our view? Inside the index guy, I'll scroll down. Our button is where is our button? Let me just scroll up. Our button is here. So I'll just copy this guy. I'll go to create. Just before a list, I'll paste our button here, and then for this matter, our button should always go to route tasks.index, right? And then I can just call this back like that. And then now I can copy this. I can go now to edit page, and then I can paste this guy just here. Then I can highlight, Control Alt L to format. Go here, highlight, Control Alt L to format. Go here, highlight, Control Alt L to format, and go to show here, highlight, Control Alt L to format. So let us go back and do a refresh here. So you can have now a button here. When you go to edit, when you click this, it should take us back to the index page, and when I click create, we have a back button, and when I click it, it takes me back to the index page. And that is it. We have built a fully functional to-do app that you can be able actually even to deploy. So guys, that brings us to the end of this course. And with that, guys, thank you so much for going through this course. All the best in learning Laravel. I wish and pray that you will become a good developer, a better developer, and will continue improving daily in your development journey. Thank you so much, and all the best. Bye bye.